Okay, today we are playing a game on the Temple of Anubis. We are playing Reinhardt on defense and Winston on attack, and the average SR of this game was 2,363. So, let's look at our team. We've got Reinhardt, Reaper, Mercy, Soldier, Orisa, and Zenyatta. So we're upset about some things. Reaper we'd rather have more or less any other DPS in the game. Reaper currently a very stupid hero because he is countered by the people that he is supposed to counter. Except for Orisa and sometimes Zarya, he counters. But doesn't really do very much countering, actually. Orisa, not terrible, but exceptionally weak to dive, and we don't have a team that's great at fending off a dive. We don't have, like, a Roadhog or anything around. We have, like, Reaper, who theoretically would be good against dive, but in practical terms tends to not be so great about it, actually. So, we're a little bit upset, but on the bright side, we do at least have a Soldier 76. So, let's start the game. So, we're standing up on the high ground. Let's skip forward a little bit. We're standing up on the high ground now, where we want to be standing. The Orisa's name is also Captain Moist, so that's something worth noting. Enemy team actually deciding to come up the right-hand side instead of the left-hand side, which makes a great deal of sense, since most teams... Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense that people always try to go up this side, and then they try to go through this door, because then you have to cut all the way in front of the choke point. Enemy team actually has enough sense to go around the left-hand side so that they're in line of sight for less time. So good job them for actually going a better way up the staircase than most people do. So, when we see them, like, mostly disappear into the door, we don't want to have the shield up anymore, because once they all start disappearing down the doorway, they're not actually going to be shooting up at you anymore. Don't need to have this up, and you're going to need to have it as healthy as possible for over here. And, like, this is the kind, like, if you put it down as quickly as possible as they go in the doorway, you're going to regenerate, like, 200 hit points on the shield, usually, before you need to put it back up again. But that's still better than if you don't do it. So as soon as you see them disappearing in the doorway, you want to take it down, because you want to have it as healthy as possible for when you have to do the stand over here. However, we do also have an Orisa right now, and the enemy team's comp is not super dive heavy, so her shield is going to effectively be another 900 HP on top of our shield, which is quite nice, as long as the enemy team doesn't totally dive us. But their team isn't actually built to do that. Orisa is actually good if the enemy team is a kind of slow grinder style of comp, where it's like, you know, long-range heroes and they're trying to slowly walk in at you with a Reinhardt shield, because she herself is very good at breaking barriers, and her barrier is effectively another 50% of Reinhardt's shield on top of his own shield. Not quite, it's 900 HP, but you get the idea. So... she is actually good in this kind of situation. It's just she's very, very weak when people get on top of her, or if she needs to get them off of other people. She's not very good at that, but if they're slowly advancing into you, she's actually pretty good at it. So this is kind of the situation where okay to have an Orisa in. However, she just gets hooked in over there and is immediately getting fucking killed, so that does somewhat... It's not great, but she manages to get away because she just slides out with Fortification on. It's not Fortification, is it? It's just Fortify, I'm pretty sure. I haven't played much Orisa, I don't actually know what her abilities are called. I don't even... like, Supercharger is her ultimate, right? Because I always just call it the Bongo, but I think it's actually the Supercharger. So, we're letting our shield regenerate right now. Orisa's barrier is here soaking damage for us in the meantime. It is actually very obnoxious to get through a Reinhardt and Orisa shield if your team isn't super good at it. Right now, you shouldn't have your shield up. As soon as Orisa's shield is down, just take it down and let Orisa's shield take the damage, and then as soon as you see her shield is about to break, you put it back up again. And you can regenerate a few hit points off of just doing that. And sometimes you can regenerate quite a few hit points. Sorry, excuse me, I'm a fucking filthy creature. Sometimes you can regenerate a fair amount of HP off of this, provided if the enemy team doesn't focus Orisa's shield down, which, you know, sometimes they don't. Like, right now, you do not need to have your shield up, because Orisa's shield, like, let hers take the damage first, then put yours up as hers is about to break. And just let yours be regenerating in the meantime. Similarly, if a Zarya bubbles you, and you're playing Reinhardt, just take your shield down, right? Just, like, take it down, and let Zarya's shield absorb the damage, and then put your shield back up. So, Soldier's using Tac Visor right now. This is not a very good time to be using Tac Visor, but it's what he's doing. So, right there, I would put my shield in front of this soldier, right? I just walk up and put my shield in front of him, just in case, because I would be afraid of him getting hooked in and killed over here as he's retreating backwards. So just like put your shield in front of him until he gets back through the doorway, basically, and then take it back down again. So, now we're going to charge him. We're going to pin this Reinhardt, who has gotten himself into a bad position. We've got our ultimate built up. We should have used it a little bit sooner because Mercy was in our line of sight. Mercy's actually just barely managed to get out of line of sight when we used our ult, so we didn't actually hit the Mercy. So we're going to kill a bunch of people right now, but we haven't killed Mercy. If you can't hit the Mercy with the Earth Shatter, what I would recommend you usually do is leave the mess of bodies on the floor for your team to kill, hopefully, and you just go after the Mercy, because she's just like ducked around this corner. She's probably standing in the corner waiting to see all the X's come up. So I would come around here and just start pressuring her, and best case scenario, you kill her and she doesn't res, and your team kills the people that you've ulted. Worst case scenario, if you go and kill her, she ults early to save herself and reses less people, and then you have a better chance of still cleaning up the fight than if she gets a massive res off. But if we ulted just like a little bit sooner, we could have gotten Mercy. We could have gotten Mercy and the Roadhog. Oh, excuse me, sorry, Jesus Christ. We could have gotten the Mercy and the Roadhog, and that in and of itself would be a successful Earth Shatter, because at that point you've killed their push completely. Because Reinhardt's already dead, so if we kill the other tank and their main healer, there's no way they keep coming in. But we held it a little bit too long, missed her, she got this big res off. We got bumped into an awkward position, so we couldn't block the Earth Shatter ourselves either. I've gone back too far for this one, because this happens, and we get pushed all the way over here, you know, this happens. Basically, what I would do is, when I see this happen, and I'm like, fuck, I couldn't block it, because I got pushed all the fuck way over to Narnia, this is where I just, like, jump down and try to pin the other Reinhardt before he can start charging, because he's gonna now do the thing where you Earth Shatter, you Fire Strike, and then you charge. So that's what he's gonna do. So as soon as I see I couldn't block it, I just jump down and try to pin him before he can do the charge, and at least, like, draw and, like, best case scenario, you, like, kill him and take the aggro off of your own team while they're on the ground, and, like, worst case scenario, you still take away the Reinhardt, who is going to be doing the majority of damage if he gets a good Earth Shatter off. So I would just try and, because he's pinned our Zenyatta now as well. If we reacted quickly enough, maybe Zenyatta survives. It's unlikely, sure, because he did just get a sick Earth Shatter off, but it's better chance than not trying at all. I mean, ideally you block it, but that's gonna be hard, seeing as we got blown to the fucking moon. If you end up in a position where, like, you can't do what you, like, if you end up in a position where, like, your shield is broken and they're coming up with the Earth Shatter, or you've missed blocking the Earth Shatter, but you're still okay yourself, you just kinda have to try and fix it as much as you can, which is usually, like, you have to try and pin the other Reinhardt, because he's gonna be, like, in the best position to capitalize off his own Earth Shatter, usually. So it's, like, if you can't block the Earth Shatter, or you've missed blocking it and he's still okay to keep going in, you gotta just try and stop him, usually, because he's gonna be charging through your team, basically. So, we're on the second point now. We still have Orisa. This is still, like, a good time to have Orisa because their team isn't super dive heavy. They do have a Tracer, which makes things slightly more complicated right now, but Tracer has just wasted her Pulse Bomb and somehow still died to Orisa. So, maybe we don't have to worry about it so much. So they're coming in right now. Their Reinhardt's used his Earth Shatter. We're very close to having our Earth Shatter. So we really don't want to die right now. Like, dying right now would be pretty terrible. Cause, like, he Earth Shattered and didn't really do that much damage afterwards. He pinned the Zenyatta and swung at us a couple of times, but he's at like 50% charge max right now, probably. So we're gonna get ours way ahead of his. It's unfortunate we missed the pin right there, because that would have given us the ult, and then we could just spin around and hit his team. We slightly lose track of the Mercy right there, and like right now is where you gotta put your shield up, my boy. You swing it into these people with 20 HP right now. You don't want to be doing that, especially not when you're so close to having Earth Shatter. Like, you just put your shield up right now, and you just sit back, and, like, try to build your Earth Shatter off, like, fire striking through them or something. But our team comes in, Reaper Death Blossoms with the Bongo going, which is essentially the same as Nano boosting him in like practical terms. And then Mercy comes in and reses us, which is actually a waste because at that point we had already won the team fight. She didn't need to res us anymore, so that's a waste of her ultimate. So we have just used 4 ultimates to fend off one push because we used the Bongo, the res, Death Blossom, and Soldier also used Tac Visor, which was also probably unnecessary. So we're down 4 ultimates right now. Enemy team, their Reinhardt's going to be coming back with most of his Earth Shatter. The rest of the enemy team is probably getting pretty close to having their ultimates since, well, except for Tracer, because she also just used hers. But they're going to be closer to their ultimates than us at this point. So we're going to you would expect at this point to have to get a pretty good Earth Shatter off to stop the next push because we've only got our ultimate and we've got Transcendence as well. So it's going to be a little bit scary. The easiest way to throw on defense is to overcommit a bunch of ultimates that you didn't need to, and then the enemy team just comes in and overwhelms you with sheer number of ultimates, which is a position we couldn't be in right now. So we have to be careful. And the other Reinhardt at this point is going to be getting close to having his Earth Shatter, because there was a whole fight that happened right there. He was probably like 50-ish% before that, so he's probably like 80% at this point if he doesn't already have it. So we gotta be careful of blocking that now. There is an Orisa as well, which is gonna make it slightly harder for him, which is always good. They've just lost their Tracer and their Roadhog, so they're not gonna be coming in anytime soon, and that's fantastic news because that gives us more time to build up our ultimates while they're still waiting for everybody to regroup. Our Reaper is now changed to Pharah, which is, as far as I'm concerned, an objective improvement. There was some discussion about how it wasn't great because they have a Soldier. Honestly, out of all the hit scan heroes, Soldier is kind of the worst counter to Pharah in most cases because he has to hit Pharah a lot of times to actually kill Pharah. Like, the straightest counter is Widowmaker because she can kill you in one shot. McCree can kill you in 2 to 3 shots, and Soldier has to shoot you a lot of times. And he can't, like, it's not very practical for him to hit you with the Helix Rocket, so he does have to shoot you a bunch of times. So, usually Soldier, like, as long as the Pharah isn't stupid, she has, like, just a healer helping her out, it's actually really hard for Soldier to kill Pharah if the Pharah isn't stupid, so it's not, you don't have to be too concerned about them just having a Soldier to counter the Pharah. So we've got a Lucio coming in right here. I would have just swung at him, honestly, but that's like a minor thing, because we were just trying to kill him. That's like the worst Tac Visor in recorded history right there, but we did see him use Tac Visor. We killed him quickly enough that he might have gotten some of that refunded. So you would probably want to tell your team, like, I killed the Tac Visor, but I killed him very quick, so he probably got a lot of it, so he probably got some of it back. But we did stop him from using the Tac Visor, and we fended off their push. We fended it off for long enough that now our team is going to be getting pretty close to having their ultimates as well, so the next push is going to be less scary at this point. Which is always good, because it always feels bad when they just come in and they just use 6 ultimates on you and you die, and there's nothing you can really do about that in most cases. So, they're just regrouping right now. We're sitting back here, we're waiting. This is kind of nitpicky stuff, right? But you don't need to have your shield up for, like, this kind of thing, because you're not really protecting anything when you're doing this. And, yeah, your shield's at, like, full HP, but, like, you're gonna take some trash chip damage to it, and you're not really protecting anything. Partly because nothing was actually behind you, they were standing behind Orisa's shield. And just there was no real damage coming in, so you don't need to have your shield up during that kind of thing. And right now, Orisa's shield is up. If her shield is up, you should try and let that absorb damage before you let your shield absorb damage. Orisa's shield is less valuable than yours because hers is less hit points and she can't move it freely. So if her shield can block something, let it block the damage first because hers is much less valuable than your shield is. So, their Reinhardt's come in. We didn't see him coming with a lot of warning, so we don't countercharge it in time, because we're sitting kind of far back. It's like you should see that coming, and you should be able to countercharge it, but like, from the position we were in, you would have to react pretty quickly. So the argument is basically just don't be in the position where you can't see it coming. Because if you're in the position where it's like, oh, I couldn't have possibly reacted to that in time, then the logical thing to do is then take it a step further back and been like, alright, how could I have been in a position where I could have seen it coming? Because there's this thing, this is going to be a small minor rant because things upset me sometimes. I don't like other people to be upset with me, other things to be upset with me. How rude of me to say that. There's a big tendency for people to fixate on the last mistake in the game. Like, if the Mercy can get like a 5-man, if like you're on overtime and your Mercy can get a 5-man res, but she dies on her way to do it or something, that your team will blame that Mercy for the loss. But the actual logical thing to do is be like, why were we in a position where we needed Mercy to get a 5-man res off to not lose the game? Like, how could we have not been in this position where everybody except Mercy was dead, right? That's the actual logical step. People tend to fixate on the last mistake made. You can usually just take it back a step further, and then you would have never even needed to be in that position where that mistake mattered, because you would have fixed the earlier mistake and you'd never even be in that position. So, you know, that's something to think about, but it's mostly just me ranting about people being stupid. This is why I don't take part in voice chat usually, because I tend to find people very upsetting, and I tend to get very annoyed, and I tend to argue with people a lot, so I tend to just avoid talking to people if possible. Because I'll just tilt my entire team, basically. I won't be tilted, I'll be having a great time. I love to argue, but I'll tilt everybody else. So, you know. So again, Orissa's shield's up right now. We shouldn't have our shield up right now. Hers is less valuable. You let that take damage first. They're gonna come around the right-hand side now, though, because the middle isn't working out. Again, just like, you know, the shield's right there. You don't need to have it up. We don't countercharge the enemy Reinhardt's pin, which is terrible, but they're getting killed over there by Barrage. And, Orissa's used the bongo. We're trying to protect the bongo right now. We turn around right here to try and block the Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. We don't block the enemy Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. What I would actually do in this position is, most of your team is not actually stood over here. It's just you and Orissa. The rest of your team is actually kind of far back and like far over that way, but she just died. So what I would actually do in this position is I would try to Earth Shatter the enemy team first, because they're all really grouped up and they're about to come out of the invulnerability. I would Earth Shatter them first, and then worry about the other Reinhardt, because your team should still be able to capitalize off of this. Like, best case scenario, your team manages to capitalize off of this because they're not up here with you. It's just you and Orissa up here. So best case scenario, it's like, we Earth Shatter them, and like, Reinhardt just Earth Shatters us, but the rest of our team can like kill enough people that we Earth Shattered that it doesn't matter. And just Reinhardt by himself, he doesn't have his charge back up yet. He's gonna have trouble killing just you and Orissa if you get hit. But like, our soldier is still alive, so if we hit these people, he's probably gonna be able to kill them because they'll still be pretty bunched up. And it's pretty, like, there's like a weird timing with this, where you can Earth Shatter people as soon as they come out of Rez's invulnerability, basically. And it feels kind of wonky to do, because it's like, Earth Shatter actually has a wind up of like 0.345 seconds, somewhere in that region. I don't know the exact number on the delay, but there's a slight delay to the cast. So if you just kind of like wait until just before they come out of the Earth Shatter and just before they come out of the invulnerability, if you ult, you'll hit them like the second they come out of it, and they like can't do anything because they just got CC'd immediately. Now I'll warn you, until you've gotten the feel for the timing on that, there are going to be times when you're going to Earth Shatter them and you're going to do it too early, and you're going to not hit them with the Earth Shatter. And that's going to suck. But the timing is actually more generous than you might assume. And it's the kind of thing that makes it hard for them to, like, capitalize off of a big res, because they don't have any time to do anything before they get Earth Shattered. So yeah, that's what I would do in this situation. But we turn around and we start looking at the Reinhardt. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that's the wrong thing to do, because blocking Earth Shatter is your priority, obviously. But I think in that position, it would have been more productive for us to Earth Shatter their team instead, and then worry about it. But we didn't block the Earth Shatter anyway. He was just slightly inside of our barrier. Feels bad, man. Mercy has her res. She's gonna res us right now. We've still got our Earth Shatter, but at this point we probably don't even need to use it. Like right here, we Earth Shatter this Reinhardt. That's honestly an committal of resources, cause like he's pinning the Mercy. Yeah, that sucks. Actually, you didn't really even know he was going to be pinning the Mercy. We just Earth Shatter the Reinhardt. Like, you're already winning this fight by that point. You don't need to do that. And then Zenyatta uses his Transcendence as well. Neither of those ultimates needed to be used. And now we're just going to be down more resources for when they come back on the next push. We didn't even get to pin the Roadhog to actually recover some ult charge, so that feels bad. But we didn't need to use that. Zenyatta didn't need to use Transcendence. So, once again, we've used a lot of ultimates, and we didn't really need to use all of those ultimates. So, we're going to be at a disadvantage when they start coming back. Especially, like, their Reinhardt is now going to be, like, he's going to get his Earth Shatter before we get our Earth Shatter, so we do have to think about that. I mean, unless something weird happens. Sometimes they can have an ult charge advantage on you, but you'll actually build yours up first, but that's kind of rare. Again, let Orisa take the damage first. Her shield is less important than yours. Any shield that's less important than your, like, Reinhardt's shield is the most important shield in the game, right? To start this off. His is the most important one. So if there is any less valuable shield in front of you, let that one take the damage first. Because it is less important than yours. You don't really need to have your shield up right now, because the only thing coming at us right now is random Junkrat shrapnel, and our team should be able to not get killed by random Junkrat shrapnel. If you have, like, you shouldn't have your shield up. They should be dodging this shrapnel coming in, because it's coming from really far away. It's a really slow projectile. They should be able to dodge it. You shouldn't have to block it. So you're just letting your shield take damage right now, and it doesn't need to be taking this damage. If somebody gets killed by the Junkrat shrapnel and they blame you for not having your shield up, you go to them, fucking dodge, you dumbass. Like, fuck, it's fucking Junkrat bombs. You can dodge it. I believe in you. So you don't need to be dodging this. This is just like trash damage that you don't need to be blocking, and it's actually chunked away a lot of your shield before they start coming in for this. Like, now they're going to be coming in on the push, and our shield is not going to be as healthy as it could be, because we've been blocking the bombs. They actually take a long time to collect over here, so it's actually managed to regenerate, but if they came up a little bit sooner, it would have been unfortunate. So they're here now. Again, our shield doesn't need to be up right now. Orisa's shield is actually in the way right there, and we don't need to be blocking these bombs. Our team should be able to dodge that. Lucio came through first. We didn't actually react quickly enough to punish him. Oh god, Junkrat bomb. He just tire rather, not just bomb. Sent it right past us. Killed Soldier with it. Orisa used the bongo, and it's been broken, which is pretty much what you expect to happen. And things are falling apart rather rapidly right now. This is the kind of position where there's not really a great play. You should Fire Strike this Reinhardt though, because he's got Discord Orb on him. Fire Strike does more damage than just hitting him. And we want this man dead as quickly as possible, because he's the most threatening thing to our team right now. Since, you know, he's Reinhardt right in the middle of our team. We do throw it eventually, but we could have thrown it sooner. And, like, we just want to kill him as quickly as possible so that we can get back to blocking the damage coming in from the rest of his team. But Mercy's rezzed us, so it's okay. We do have to remember Reinhardt's getting close to his ultimate at this point, so we have to try and worry about blocking that, but we're trying to kill the Mercy. Don't quite kill the Mercy, but she's still dead. Reinhardt's Earth Shattered, but this is a bad Earth Shatter because he's the only one alive. So it's bad because nobody can do anything. But that's fantastic news for us, because Reinhardt just used his Earth Shatter, so he's at 0% charge right now. We're at 90% charge. We're gonna be like, he is not going to get his ultimate by the time they start pushing in again, because they've only got 20 seconds. But we are gonna have our Earth Shatter. So we've got a big advantage coming into the next fight because of the Earth Shatter advantage. You got a bit of charge right there. Like, if you can, like, this is something that, like, is hard to keep track of, but if you can, try and, like, see how many people he hits with a Fire Strike when he throws it through you, and just try to, like, figure out how many people it hit, because it is 7% charge per person hit. So if you can kind of just keep track of that, that'll tell you how close he is to having his ultimate. Unless, it's not the kind of thing that matters overly so, but if you're the kind of person that wants to get, like, every possible advantage you can, you want to try and, like, keep track of how many people Reinhardt has hit since the last time you saw him ult, because that'll give you a pretty good idea of where his ult is at charge-wise. But it doesn't matter overly so. Like, I always talk about, like, keeping careful track of the enemy Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. Honestly, if you just, like, always assume he has it, that's good enough in most cases. But if you are looking for every advantage possible, you want to try and keep track of, like, the charge percentage, like, you want to know roughly what he is at percentage-wise, because that gives you more of an advantage to know that than just assuming he has it. So he's coming up this way. We don't countercharge him right here, and we end up getting juggled and pinned. That you should be able to countercharge that one, like, on reaction. Like, it's easier than you think, because, like, you only have to push shift. You don't have to actually be moving to countercharge him. This is something I've had to learn myself recently, because I've always said that, like, if you're watching for them fire striking or charging, you can usually ult past it as soon as they start doing it if you're ready for it. I've come to realize that earth shattering them when they start charging is hard enough to do on reaction that it's kind of not worth going for, and you're usually better just countercharging them instead, and then trying to earth shatter them after that point. Because the wind up on earth shatter is long enough that you actually have to react to him starting the charge very quickly. And it's probably safer in most cases to just countercharge the enemy Reinhardt instead of trying to earth shatter him out of the charge. This is something I've had to learn myself recently as well. You always learn something new. But we didn't countercharge him right there. We got dropped really low. We couldn't even use our earth shatter, and we're not even going to get back in time to contest the point. So that's the kind of thing where we could have probably protected that. We could have probably stopped them from capturing that point by just doing one thing slightly better and countercharging their Reinhardt, because he ended up, the worst possible situation happened where we didn't countercharge it, and he ended up juggling us into a pin, and then we died before we could use Earth Shatter. So we can we would have probably won that if we didn't get killed right there, because we would have been able to get off a pretty good Earth Shatter probably in most cases. Even just an okay Earth Shatter would have probably been enough, because we had other ultimates to use as well, so, you know. Alright, so we're playing Winston right now. We've got kind of a dive comp. Because we've got Winston, we've got Zarya, and we've got Pharah, and we've got Lucio. So we've got mostly a dive comp. We are missing Zenyatta and a Tracer or a Genji. So we have, like, 2/3 of a dive comp, but we don't have a full dive comp. Because Zenyatta, I mean, the Tracer Genji part you don't necessarily need. The Zenyatta part is kind of important, though. Because you have to kill people as quickly as possible, and Discord Orb is really good at doing that. So not having the Zenyatta for the dive comp is kind of a big deal. But we do have mostly a dive comp. That's kind of what we're going for right now. We have a Zarya with us, and we call out that we are diving in and that we want her to bubble us basically, so that's good. We misalign the jump slightly here, and we don't actually land up on the high ground. That sucks. And now we're basically, I was gonna say we're basically fucked, but I forgot we got bumped up in, like, the best possible way and landed right up here. Good job getting hit in just the right way. So we jump across the rooftops. Didn't really need to do that. Probably wasn't the intention. Right now, so we've got a bird's eye view of things right now. And when you're playing Winston, basically the most important thing is target prioritization, because Winston is a very simple hero mechanically. You know, just as long as they're in front of you, you're hitting them. So the most important thing is target prioritization. You have to know who is your highest priority, and you just want to dive on them and kill them. And it's like, the priority is like person who is out of position supports DPS. Well, it's like snipers supports DPS, and tanks are the absolute lowest. Right now we can see everything. We see Orisa has just died, so that's good. Orisa's actually one of the most threatening people on their team to us right now, because Orisa does actually do a lot of damage, and we are easy to hit as Winston. And our head is fucking huge, of course. But, so we can see everybody right now. Look at all the heroes we see right now. Who is the highest priority out of all the people we can see right here? Just like, you know, give it a guess, you know. Take your time. So, it's actually Zenyatta. Because Zenyatta is the one who is most isolated right now. Because Orissa's here, she's dead, so she's not going to be doing anything. Anna's over here, but she's near Soldier and Reinhardt, and they're all going in this area to try and kill our Lucio, who is committing suicide right now. Zenyatta is over here. His team isn't even looking at him right now. They're looking in here at Lucio. So they might not even notice you diving the Zenyatta for a while. Anna probably will, but you're going to put your bubble on top of him as soon as you dive on him, so she won't really be able to do anything too much. So we should dive on the Zenyatta right now, and he should pretty much be a free kill, honestly, because the people, like, Reinhardt's going in here to kill him. Reinhardt's the most threatening person to us in our line of sight right now. Soldier and Anna, we're good at killing them. They aren't too threatening to us. So if we dive on this Zenyatta, we should kill him, like, 9 times out of 10. So he's the one we should be trying to focus right now with what we see. But I think we're probably more worried about trying to save the, Lucio. So we, kind of jump across, but we accidentally land on the rooftop. I'm not sure what the exact plan was there, but we should have just we should have just been like, Zenyatta, and jumped on him immediately. We got him in the end regardless, so it's like a pretty nitpicky thing, I suppose. But when you look at that kind of thing, you just gotta scan quickly and be like, Zenyatta, and jump on the Zenyatta immediately and kill him. Target prioritization is the most important part of playing Winston. Okay, that's not technically true, because the most important thing is staying alive, because that's the most important thing for all people. There's this thing with the Winston players that I find where they basically are like, they want to play some kind of weird kamikaze style, where they're just gonna jump into all of the people and just I'm gonna disrupt all of you. He's a disruption tank, that's the idea, but usually what happens is they just dive into the 6 people and get focused down and die, because Winston is actually very easy to kill. Winston is a guerrilla, and appropriately enough, he uses guerrilla warfare. So, kind of similarly to a flanker, you kind of have to know what you're gonna do. You have to kind of plan things out. Because the idea is you're looking for people, you're trying to bully 1 or 2 people that you're good at bullying. Because when you're picking Winston as well, you're usually picking him because you counter a certain thing on the enemy team. Winston's not usually a tank you just pick. So it's usually they have a Widowmaker, there's a Genji, a Hanzo, something or other. And the supports, you naturally counter all of them anyway, so you usually see one of the DPS is somebody that you counter, and then you're alright, I'm gonna pick Winston now. The idea is you go in, you fuck with the people you're good at fucking with, you avoid the other people as much as possible. You don't want to ever really fight a tank, because Winston is terrible at fighting tanks. He does no damage, and all of the he does damage, but he doesn't do damage to people with high HP and armor, because armor reduces the damage Winston does as well. So, it's a lot of little damage over time, so armor very heavily negates Winston's damage. So the idea is you jump onto the people you're good at bullying around, and you bully them around, and you disrupt them, and you make people come back to try and peel for them, or you just kill them if nobody does that. And then you jump away. So you kind of have to know what you're gonna do. You're alright, you figure out who you're trying to bully, and then you look for those people out of position, and you just try to bully them around, and then as soon as aggro comes onto you, you leave again. Because dying is the worst possible thing you can do. Because it doesn't matter how much pressure you are applying to the people you're trying to kill, as soon as you die, all pressure is immediately relieved. So it's very important you don't die. You are just trying to harass people, and then, harass the people you want to harass. Try and kill them if you can. Killing them is obviously the best case scenario, but usually you're just trying to fuck with them. It's kind of hard for Winston to kill people unless they're out of position or their team doesn't help them. So usually you're just trying to look to fuck with them as much as possible, then leave, then come back and fuck with them again after you've recovered your resource, you've healed up, your shields back up, things like that. So it's very important you don't die when you're playing Winston. That's important for all heroes, obviously, but I find people that play, flankers, Winston, Diva, they don't think about, surviving enough, and they usually just die. But the thing is, it doesn't matter how much pressure, and then they're like, well, why didn't you capitalize? I was disrupting them. Well, if you didn't die, yeah, okay. Sometimes your team can capitalize off you disrupting for them, but if you don't die, you can just kill them, you can just keep disrupting them for more, you can disrupt them for longer, or kill them. So, it's, you know, people don't think about their own survival enough, I find, when they play, like, flankers and, Winston Diva. Disruptors, basically. Because they're just like, I'm disrupting. Yeah, but as soon as you die, you're not disrupting anymore, are you? So, it doesn't matter. So anyway, we're diving in right now. This is not where we want to be, because we're right in front of a Roadhog right now. Roadhog is a very hard counter to Winston. It's one of the harder counters in the game. You want to avoid Roadhog at all costs. You want to if they've got like a Reaper or a Roadhog, you want to fight around those people as little as possible. Reaper you can still sometimes kill if you do the bubble dance correctly. So, this is the thing with Reaper being kind of a stupid hero. But Roadhog, he is gonna kill you like 10 times out of 10, all things being equal. So you want to fight around him as little as possible. And we want to avoid, like, we're tasing a lot of tanks right now, and Winston is awful at tasing tanks, and all of the tanks immediately just, like, kill us. This is the kind of point where you consider changing off of Winston, because the enemy team right now, we aren't actually that good at bullying, because they've got Roadhog, Zarya, and Reinhardt. So half of their team is tanks. Winston's really, really bad at killing tanks. He just doesn't do enough damage. So we bully around Zenyatta, Ana, and Soldier. But the thing is, because half of their team is tanks, it's going to be hard for us to find people who are not near people that can help protect them. So at this point, we'd probably be better off playing Reinhardt or Roadhog, because it's going to be difficult for us to actually, like, bully these people around. Because chances are they're going to be near one of the people we don't want to fight. Or it's going to be like Ana and Zenyatta are on top of each other and they're able to protect each other, or like Soldier's going to be nearby, he's going to help protect them. It's going to be hard for us to actually find people by themselves to bully around with this team comp. So we got killed by the tanks, but Mercy's rezzed them, and ultimates have been happening. We've killed a bunch of them, so things are actually going quite well right now. We just tase Zenyatta to death. We don't stop tasing because the bubble's on, and we're just trying to kill him as quickly as possible. And we do almost have Primal Rage, so that's cool. Enemy team, still hard for us to work with, and it's going to be harder still for us now, because second point on Anubis, enemy team tends to be very closely knit together. So it tends to get very difficult for you to bully people around as Winston. But we do almost have Primal Rage, so we can probably get something done with that, if all things go well. Zarya's not very close to having Graviton, so it's going to be hard for us to just, like, get a straight snowball in, because we don't have, like, the Graviton, which is the most important ultimate on our team right now. And Farah's just used Barrage as well to capture the last point. So it's going to be difficult for us to get a straight snowball victory in here. But as you can see by the timer, there's not actually very much time left in this game. So things go pretty well. So we have Primal Rage now, but we've taken a big chunk of damage, so we're kind of waiting to get healed up first. You probably just want to slap your bubble down right as you're going up right here, because, like, our team is kind of trying to go in right now. And when you are playing Winston, you do have this kind of, like, secondary goal where you try to block Reinhardt's Earth Shatter if possible with your bubble. And he uses it here. I mean, we haven't been keeping super careful track of it because we're not also playing Reinhardt. But if you can as well when you're playing Winston, this is much harder to keep track of if you're not playing Reinhardt, basically, because you aren't looking at Reinhardt all the time if you're not playing Reinhardt. But we do have the secondary goal where we're kind of trying to make it hard for him to Earth Shatter if we can. So putting the bubble down there would have probably blocked this, if not stopped him from doing it. But I mean, that's kind of a hindsight is 2020 thing as well, right? So we put the bubble down right now. Our Mercy just got pinned, which is pretty terrible, but we have killed Soldier and Reinhardt. And right now we've got the sound barrier on us as well. We should just, like, dive in immediately, basically, and start getting in here. You could also, like, sometimes it's the correct play to try and, like, bat the Transcendence away, if you can, when you're playing, like, Winston and you've got Primal Rage. Doesn't really matter so much in this circumstance. We've killed a bunch of people. Ultimates are happening. Graviton came up in time for us to use it coming into this push. So things are going pretty sick right now. Reinhardt's coming out. He doesn't have Earth Shatter. We don't have to be afraid. Kind of an unfortunate pin happened right there, but nobody's here to really capitalize on it. At this point, I would have ulted already. I would basically ult and go over here and be like, nope, get away. Get away. Don't you dare touch it. Because Roadhog is kind of like the one that's going to stall it out the most. We end up using it to try and bully around this soldier, who we kind of lose track of as we're pushing him around. I mean, we do the same thing. I would have done it to the Roadhog sooner. But we end up doing it to the soldier instead, which is kind of the same thing. So it doesn't matter overly so in the end. But we actually did manage to get a straight snowball through. Everything went a lot better than you would expect, honestly. Zarya managed to get her Graviton, which helped a lot towards the end of the push, but we also managed to pick people off right at the start of the fight, so that was a big help. So, we only have to touch it for like 0.1 seconds right now. So we're basically gonna go with another dive comp. Again, we have mostly a dive comp. We don't have Zarya now, which is kind of a shame, because Zarya is better than D.Va, and she helps Winston do Winston things a lot more. We have the Tracer, but we're still missing the Zenyatta, who is kind of an important part of the dive comp. And D.Va is a lot worse than Zarya in most cases. The glory days of about 6 months ago, when D.Va was like one of the best tanks in the game. Oh, and then they took all of her armor away. So, we've only got to get 0.1% right now, and we've got nearly 5 minutes to do it in. So, we're feeling pretty good about this one. We are also in the rare... Oh, fucking hell, Jesus Christ. We are also in the rare position where we can't lose anymore. We can only not win, because they are at 0%. So, we go in right now. We don't really look before we leap, because again, we don't really want to jump into like all 6 people usually, because it's pretty easy for them to turn around and kill us. We look up here, we don't really get a full idea of what's up here before we jump in. It turns out it's only like 2 people, Mei and Reinhardt, so it's not the end of the world. But we don't really get a full grasp of the situation before we jump in. And again, we don't want to die. So our jump is up right now, like we're gonna get frozen by this Mei. Basically. So this is the point where you jump away, because you don't want to get frozen, because when you get frozen, it's really easy to die. And then we just jump straight into more danger. Again, you don't want to die. That's very important. As soon as you know Mei is going to freeze you, basically, you get out. You got to go back and get to your team, get back to your team, and get healed up, basically. And then you can go back in later when you're healthier and you've got your shield back up, stuff like that. As soon as a lot of pressure comes onto you, you just leave. And you come back when you've got more health, more resources to work with. So, Mei just killed a bunch of people over there as well, so Mei has actually gotten like a lot of her ult charge off of this, which is not great, because Blizzard is kind of an annoying ultimate. So, again, we've jumped into the entire enemy team right now. We don't actually have all of our team with us while we're doing this right now. We're jumping in too early, because Mercy is currently dead. She's coming back. Someone else also recently died, so they're coming back, but they're gonna get back soon. But we're not going in with a full team right now. We could just wait like an extra 5 or so seconds, like 5, 6, 7 seconds, and our team would be more together than it is right now. So we've spotted the Mercy. We're trying to bully around the Mercy. Her team are trying to help her, and she gets a res off, so she ends up saving herself. We've almost got Primal Rage, but, had to reload, and our bubble came off cooldown just a bit too late. We got hooked, and we died. Again, as soon as you think you're gonna die, as soon as you think you're in danger of dying, you want to just try and get out. Right there, you were probably banking on building up Primal Rage, and then, like, fighting off of that. Which is understandable. It's like, it's unfortunate. Like, the unfortunate things happened right at the end. So whatever, I'm not gonna belabor the point too much there. We're trying to, like, keep morale up. We're like, alright, we don't need to win fast. Everyone just, like, regroup. We're like, Mercy, like, don't use any ultimates. Now we have a bunch of ultimates. We have 4 out of 6 ultimates right now. They've probably got some ultimates, but we've got a bunch of ultimates to work with as well. And we're in Primal Rage. It's great time to have Primal Rage, because we've only got to get them all off of the point for a second and we'll win. So, we put the bubble down, we're coming in now, we Primal Rage pretty early, that's fine, because we only have to get them all off of the point. And we use a bunch of zoning ultimates, we're just trying to push them off of the point. And we didn't quite get all of them off the point, but we've managed to bully this Reinhardt to death, and we got 69 fire for it. That's the magic number right there, it's a sign. We get hooked right out of the air as we're going in, so that's really unfortunate, but we get rezzed, and we should win off the res, basically, because they're still down people right now, and their Mercy can't res. And we're going around, we're tasing people, we're playing Winston right now, we're getting really close to having Primal Rage again, actually, because we're tasing so many people, but we are actually going to win the game, because, as you can see, it's just Roadhog. We didn't even kill him. We just pushed him off and we won the game. So, great. Not a very close game, honestly. This is kind of the thing with Overwatch, is when you play defense first, it can feel like it's a really close game, because you fight for such an extended period of time on one round, right? Like, you just fight it out the entire way through. And then you get to the attacking round and you win the entire thing with like 2 minutes to spare. Like, even after like 2 rounds of attacking. And you're like, oh, I guess it wasn't actually very close at all. And this is kind of a thing as well, is that, like, I find that the team that defends first, and bearing in mind this is anecdotal evidence, I don't have, like, empirical data to back this up or anything, but I find the team that defends first has a higher chance of losing, because the team that defends first is the most likely to get tilted, I find. Because in most cases, like, as you get higher and higher in SR, the attacking team is usually the team that succeeds more often. Defending team wins a lot at low SR because the attacking team tends to not know what to do, so they have trouble breaking through a defense. As you get higher, that becomes less the case, and the attacking side gets to complete their circuit more and more. So I find the team that's defending usually tilts first, because the enemy team is going to push it, like, through most of it, or, like, the entire way through, and they'll get tilted by that fact, even though you should kind of expect that to happen, and on some maps more than others as well, because, like, Gibraltar, like, people will tilt by them getting it into the hangar. That's not that unusual for them to get it into the hangar, you know? But they'll get tilted by the fact they've pushed it that far already, like, that they were expecting to not let them get any checkpoints at all, which is not realistic. So I find the defending team tends to tilt more off. The team that first defends is the team that tilts first, because they get tilted by losing checkpoints, even though you should expect to lose some checkpoints, right? Like, if they get it all the way to, like, the last checkpoint, which is not unusual at all, right? Like, it's not unusual to be fighting at the last checkpoint. They'll be tilted by the fact they're at the last checkpoint, but, like, that's not that unusual, and you just have to attack better than them. Right, like, people are annoying to me. So that's another rant right there about people being stupid and not really understanding how attack and defense work. Because sometimes you defend and it feels like it's really close, but then you attack and you're like, oh fuck, that was actually easy because they don't know how to defend. So we just, like, blitz through in like 3 minutes, and they took like 6 minutes to get there, like, you know, and then you learn it wasn't actually very close at all. Anyway, though. So, the thing that stands out to me the most in this game, not so much with Winston, there wasn't so much stuff with Winston, like, there's some, like, slight target prioritization going in a little bit early and not, like, necessarily looking before you leap, but nothing majorly stands out with Winston. With Reinhardt, it's like shield management stuff again. This is, like, usually a thing with the thing for Reinhardt players is their shield management. There's a lot of times we're standing behind Orissa's shield, we have the shield up, we don't need to have the shield up. There's times we're blocking, like, trash damage, like the Junkrat bombs coming in. Your team should be able to block that. Honestly, you shouldn't have to worry about that. You should just be letting your shield recharge. Not taking it down as quickly as you could, like when they're coming in the first point, you can take it down sooner and have it recharge a little bit. Just like a bunch of, like, shield management things that add up. But, like, the big thing is all just, like, let Orissa's shield take damage first. Alright, like, let any other shield take damage before yours, because your shield is the most important one when you're playing Reinhardt. So any other shield in front of you, you let that one take the damage first. And then, you know, just like, you know, shield management things. That's the thing that stood out to me the most in this game. This is, for the most part, a pretty good game. The other thing is, like, not countercharging the other Reinhardt as much as you could, because there's a few times we don't countercharge him when we could. And that's a pretty big thing as well, countercharging the other Reinhardt. But this is a pretty good game overall. Like, I mean, this tends to be the case, you know. Usually I watch your games and I'm like, this is pretty good. There's not usually overly much so. Like, sometimes I watch a video and I get to the end and I'm like, alright, like, bullet point list, what stood out to me. And then usually when I watch your videos, I get to the end of it and I'm like, I can usually only think of, like, 1 or 2 things, whereas other people have thought of, like, 3, 4, 5 things, like, you know, so, like, your games are usually pretty good, like, you've got, like, all the right ideas, it's just, like, refining the smaller things, basically. Because, like, in the grand scheme of things, shield management is, lower down. It's, like, one of the smaller aspects. Like, this is gonna sound really weird. Shield management is kind of like a lower thing because, like, it tends to be a lot of very small things you do with your shield that adds up over time. Like, letting the Orisa's shield take damage first. That usually doesn't make a massive difference, but it does make a difference. And it's like taking your shield down a little bit sooner, like on the first point, when they're coming, like, all going into the doorway. That's like a difference of like 200 HP on your shield. It's just sometimes that 200 HP matters. So it's the kind of thing that, and like, at this point, like, most of the bigger scale mistakes have already been shaved off, right? Because, like, I watch, like, lower tier Reinhardt players, like Silver SR Reinhardt players, and it looks completely different. Because it's like, they charge in too aggressive, they're way too aggressive, they aren't actually protecting their team, they aren't worrying about Earth Shatter at all, they're missing their Earth Shatters, they don't know when to do it, this kind of thing. Like, none of that happens here. Like, you've got all the right ideas, and I can, like, very clearly see I've seen, like, a lot of your games at this point. I can very clearly see the upward trend you've been on. And at this point, it's, like, mostly, like, less important like, smaller differences, smaller things that over time add up. Because most of the big mistakes have been shaved off at this point. Like, you are protecting people with your shield. Your positioning is good. You Earth Shatter people. Like, you're not charging into people on defense. You're not, like, charging out of the choke point on defense. You don't do any of the big mistakes anymore. Now it's, like, smaller mistakes that often take longer to work on because they're smaller mistakes, but they add up over time, right? So it tends to be, it's like, and there's, like, a lot of things to think about as well in every game. So it's like, positioning is something that's very difficult for people because it's something that you have to be doing the entire game through. And it's usually very minor things that add up over time. And it's like, now it's like your positioning's fine, but it's like all these minor shield management things add up over time, and over the course, like, over the weeks or months, whatever, you're gonna win more games because of these small efficiencies you've gotten out of shield management. But in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of a smaller thing that is just, it's still a mistake. It's just a smaller mistake that adds up over time. So this has been a very long and rambling point, but the idea is basically, you know, you're good. You're good at the game. Like, you're good at the game. So I tend, like, sort of like, whenever I come to, like, think of these bullet point lists at the end of these videos for you, I'm always like, man, there's not really that much. So it's by shield management and, like, you could countercharge people more, but those are kind of the biggest things, really, because there's no, like, huge mistakes happening anymore, right? Like, I can remember, like, I could tell, like, the difference between this game to, like, the first game I ever saw you play, because that did have more mistakes in it, and it was much easier for me to, like, think of something in my mind. Like, at the end of the game, I was, like, more clearly had in my mind what the big things that stood out to me were. And then at the end of this game, I'm like, shield management's kind of the only one, really. Like, you know. So this has been very rambling and incoherent, but the moral of the story is, you're good at the game. So, you know, good stuff. Shield management. Important. That's about all, though. Might not even put a list at the end of this video, because also, like, sometimes I don't put, like, the list on screen at the end. That's basically, like, if I can't think of enough things to really put here, it just, like, it doesn't really seem as much point to have a list and have one thing on it, you know? So, anyway, though, thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and I hope you found the video helpful.